Okay, we are getting started. So welcome everybody to the Tuesday afternoon mini training. I am going to start by sharing my screen and the PowerPoint. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so welcome to today's training. As you just saw, this training will be recorded, and all of the 10 training, Tuesday afternoon training activities will be archived and on our website. It's easy to see if you look down the left side of our website. The past 3 are already up there, so thank you, Brian, for getting those up. And each time we do a new one, it will appear there. The plan is to cover content for about 30 minutes and leave at least 15 minutes for questions at the end. If you have a question or you want to make a comment, you can either use the chat box, and Julie Meyer will be monitoring the chat box, or you can click the raise hand in the Zoom toolbar. And then we'll do those at the end of the session. You can also unmute yourself. Feel free to do that. And handouts will be posted in the chat. And I do have one worksheet that will be in the chat. And also I'm going to hold it up and I'm going to show it on the screen. So today's mini training topic is behavior in the time of COVID, and I have a special surprise for us today because I would like us to take a Zoom field trip, a magical mystery tour. This is the first Zoom field trip I've conducted. No permission slips are required. So what I want to do is I want to show you a feature of the open hands, open access intervener training modules. So I am going to show you how you can take slideshows off of the open hands, open access modules and use them for your own use. Because that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to show you how I did what I'm going to do. So I am on the website of the National Center on Deafblindness. And if you scroll down about a little ways down the main page of the website, you'll see a link that says deafblind information. And if you click on that, open hands, open access, deafblind intervener learning modules are right here under this yellow frequently used box. So if you click on that, it takes you to open hands, open access. All 26 modules are here. And also there's a link here if you want to see them in Spanish. So all of the modules are here and they're grouped by category. So I'm going to go down to the category called Promoting Learning, and I'm going to click on the module called Behavior and Environmental Supports. And now we're in the module. This is the same great content that's in the modules that we use at the university. It just these modules just don't have discussion boards and quizzes and other interactive features, but all the slideshows are there. So the slideshow we're going to use today is under Learning Activity 2. So I'm going to click on that down at this left sidebar. And we're going to be using this slideshow called A Way to Look at Behavior. So I'm going to click on that. And here we are at the slideshow. And what I wanted to point out today is that when you're at these slideshows in AHOA, right underneath the slideshow, you'll see a link that says download PowerPoint or PDF version of slide presentation. So if you click on that, you get the slideshow as a Google slideshow, and then you can go up here to File, and scroll down to Download, and there you can see, you can download it as a Microsoft PowerPoint, as a PDF document, as plain text. I never do scalable vector graphics because I don't even know what that is. If you know what scalable vector graphics is, good for you. Anyway, so all you do is if I'm not going to do it because I've already done it, but you would just click on Microsoft PowerPoint, and then you can take this slideshow, put it in your own PowerPoint, and then do anything you want with it. You can use it if you have to do a training for your colleagues, or parents if you're looking for a way to explain something to your child's team. All of these slideshows are available for you to use in this way. So I just wanted to point that out, that is something that's available to you in the Open Hands, Open Access modules. So there you are. And then through the magic of computers, I have taken that slideshow and here it is. So I gave it the yellow background that we're using for all of our Tuesday afternoon training activities. And, but it's basically the slideshow right out of AHOA. So today, a new way to look at behavior. One of the reasons why I like this this approach that I'm going to share with you, one of the reasons why I like it so much is that the very first question when you look at behavior, you ask yourself, is this a behavior that I'm concerned about only because it bothers me? It's my personal problem, and therefore, is it something that I should just live with? And I really like this because it puts the question of whether or not the problem behavior is with the child, or is the problem really with us? And you'll understand that more as we go. So so these are the questions that are in this approach. But one of the, I'm going to leave this just for a second and show you my handout. And now you are looking at my handout, and I'm also going to hold it up on the screen right here. So this is, I took the questions from this AHOA slideshow and put it on a one-page handout. And you have a link to it in your chat box. So if this is an easier way to use this model, then feel free to use it. But what it asks you to do before you even start to answer these questions is to identify the target behavior. And the way we do that is to describe it as clearly as possible without personal bias. It says that right at the top of this page. And the way I explain that is it's kind of as though you are as though you are observing a videotape of something. It's not, it doesn't include your feelings about the situation or what you think is happening with the child at this point, but it's just as clearly as possible you are describing what the specific behavior is that you think you would like to address. So we'll call that the target behavior. So I'm going to leave that now and go back to the slideshow. 1 second. And now we'll stay in the slideshow the rest of the afternoon. So so here's the first question. So once you've identified your target behavior, you sort of go through these questions in order. And the first question is, does this behavior just annoy you personally? Can it be accepted and ignored. And so the examples they give here, the child sticking their tongue out of the side of their mouth, humming, rubbing the knuckles of the hand against the side of the head, or flapping when they get when the child gets excited. So the way I look at these are kind of like the way I think about something like marriage counseling. So when you go to marriage counseling, a lot of times one of the things that they want to talk to you about are the little things about your partner or spouse that bother you. And you have to decide how much can you just not stand, and how much can you decide to live with one way or another. And this weekend I was watching tennis, which I never do, and I was watching the final match of the French Open between Nadal and Djokovic, I think his name is. And I was noticing how Rafael Nadal has a lot of idiosyncratic behaviors that he does before every single serve. He pulls his hair back behind his ears, he wipes his nose, he tugs on his shirt, and he does these things every time in the same exact order. So I looked it up this morning online to see, I just Googled idiosyncrasies of Rafael Nadal, and it turns out he's got all these things that he does exactly the same at every match. And one of them is jumping up and down during the coin toss. So when the ref or whoever it is does the coin toss, he's jumping up and down. He's got all of these behaviors that he does as part of his routine when he's playing a match. I think that this approach applies to parents. So when you look at your child, you have to decide, is what my child doing, does it just get under my skin for some reason? Is it cultural? Is it the way I was raised? Is it that I don't want to, in a situation, I don't want to draw attention to myself? It's kind of like I've had a number of parents tell me that they get so embarrassed when their family is in church because their child is loud and can be distracting during the church service, and the parents feel really bad, and then the pastor will come up after the church service and the parents will apologize, and the pastor will say, please, it's okay. we welcome everybody, and we're an inclusive place. And they try to put the parents at ease. And I want to share a quick story of something that I don't think I've ever talked about publicly before, but I've been thinking a lot about that in terms of this first step in this model. I used to have a student in my classroom when I was teaching who, how can I describe this? She had a very distinctive face. She was missing a lot of the facial features that you would think make up a face. So she was distinctive looking. There was no doubt about it. And when we would go on day trips, we would take the city bus and leave campus. She would, when she got upset, she would straighten her arms and she'd make a loud sound like, that's how she showed her frustration. And at the time when I first started teaching this young girl, it really bothered me, and I really wanted her to stop doing that. And really, looking back, there was nothing wrong with what she was doing. It was much preferable to pushing or biting or scratching or many of the other behaviors that she could have done. But the problem with the behavior was my problem. I thought that it drew attention to her in a way that felt uncomfortable to me. just me as the teacher. And I realized after a couple of months of this that it was really my problem, because she didn't have the visual feedback to know that people looked if they did. And it wasn't an issue to her, and that it was a perfectly reasonable thing to think that a child, if they were frustrated or upset, would make a sound and stiffen their body a little bit. But to me, I felt like that was a behavior that needed to be corrected, simply because I had a problem with it. What I like on this slide is that it says these behaviors would probably not ever be considered problems if the child did not have a diagnosis of a disability. So that's step one. Ask yourself, does this behavior just annoy me personally? And therefore, can it be accepted and ignored? So the next step, does this behavior seem to help the child function in a positive way? And can it be accepted and ignored? And so this is sort of similar to step one, but the question is, when you're looking at this behavior, does it seem to help the child? Has the child discovered that this is something that the child needs, and therefore can we just let it go and accept it? And the example I think of with this step is this idea of students who are integrated into general ed and sometimes need sensory breaks throughout the academic day so that they can concentrate on what's going on in class. And so I had a student recently who needed to jump and spin occasionally throughout the day, and the PT and the physical therapist and the adapted PE teacher put a little one of those little mini trampolines in the corner of the room, and the teacher said, oh, we can't have that in the classroom, because if this child can jump and spin on the trampoline, then all the other kids will want to do the same thing. And I feel like that's really underestimating children in general. I think children are very smart. And if you explain to all the children in the class that this is something that this child needs so that they can function in the class, be a part of the class, pay attention, and be a good friend, I think children will get that. What's more, why not have a jumping buddy with this child? So why not assign somebody each day or each half a day to be that child's jumping buddy? So every child in the class gets an opportunity to go to the back corner and do jumping with the child. And then everybody's happy because the kids all get a turn eventually, and they all get to experience what the child is experiencing. So I think it's a good question to ask is does this behavior serve an important function to the child? And if so, should we let it be? Okay, so then we're going to keep going down the list of questions. And the next question is, does this behavior seem to help the child function in a positive way, but should be reduced or replaced by another better behavior over time? And the slideshow from the module has examples of physical postures. But what I was thinking when I was thinking about today is this is sort of where I would put behaviors that we sometimes call obsessive. Or interests that we call obsessive. So perhaps the child has an obsessive interest in something. It could be that questions that the child asks you when they meet you. It could be showing you pictures of something that the child has a particular interest in, like I don't know, like say fire extinguishers. So say that the child has an obsessive interest in fire extinguishers. It's serving a purpose for the child, but it is something that we might be able to replace over time with something that might be more interesting to peers and adults. So maybe we could take the child's interest in fire extinguishers and expand it to something that becomes both a hobby for the child and a way to attract other kids to that child, to make the child more approachable in a social way. So the question is, does this behavior serve an important function, but should it be replaced or reduced with something different, maybe better, hopefully, over time? There's two more here. Okay, the next question is this a behavior that is undesirable and needs to be reduced or replaced fairly quickly? Now, my criticism of this slide, again, this is right out of AHOA, is that I would say, I would start this question just like the other question started. I would start it by asking, does this behavior seem to help the child function in a positive way? So again, I would say, does this behavior seem to serve an important function for the child, but it needs to be reduced or replaced fairly quickly? And the example that they give in AHOA is a child who persistently plays with their own saliva. And so we see that a lot with kids. So they'll pull their saliva out, they'll rub the saliva on their hands, they'll rub saliva on their face. This slide says, although this behavior is not inherently dangerous, it clearly is undesirable for reasons of hygiene and social appropriateness. I guess during the age of COVID, you could say that it is inherently dangerous. But an example from my own teaching career that I think about often is a young boy that I taught who had charge syndrome, and he had this behavior where he would get out of recess by standing on the play yard and urinating on the play yard. So he would drop his pants and just pee underneath the play structure or in the tan bark or whatever. And peeing on the playground is a really effective way to get out of recess very quickly. Because when this kid did this, everybody was on him and getting his pants up and rushing him back into the classroom to put him on the toilet. So this kid was very clever. He probably, looking back, really disliked recess for a lot of reasons. One, it was a play structure. Two, it was with a lot of bright, sunny days, and he no doubt had issues with glare. So this very clever kid realized quite quickly that he could get out of PE by doing this behavior. And so I would put that in the category of it served a function to the child, but it's behavior that is undesirable and needs to be replaced fairly quickly. It's not you'll see in number 5. Number 5 is the most urgent need for replacement behavior. But so I don't know. You could put peeing on the playgrounds anywhere between this question and the next one, I guess, depending on on how awful it is. But these are behaviors that need to be replaced fairly quickly. And then the last question is this? So again, I would preface the beginning of this question with regardless of whether this behavior serves an important function to the child, regardless of that, is this a behavior that needs to be prevented immediately? And these, as the slide says, could include a range of behaviors that cause damage to the child or to others around the child. So the examples that the AHOA slide gives here: poking fingers into eyes, banging their head very hard, throwing objects, which can be dangerous, pulling hair, scratching or hitting themselves or others, and random escaping and running away. So, so in the discussion portion of today's training, we'll talk about some strategies that might be effective for getting rid of these behaviors as much as possible. But a lot of those strategies are very specific to a specific child, to a specific place, perhaps, a specific behavior, a specific time of day, specific people that are impacted by this behavior that you want to change. There are a lot of features that require sort of a very customized approach for some of these most important behaviors that need to be extinguished. So so that's the level that says it doesn't matter whether or not this serves an important function for the child. We have to find another way to meet the child's need. So poking fingers into eyes, if that provides some sort of visual sensation that the child likes, then is there some other way that we can provide that same sensation? So then there's 2 slides at the end, and I'll show you the second one. The first sentence on this slide says, keep in mind that the team should be included in all decisions about changes in behavior. And if you're familiar with the Open Hands, Open Access modules, you know that when they say team, that includes, of course, the family as equal and engaged members of the educational team. And Tim Hartshorn, who led the writing of this module, he's a psychologist, a professor at Central Michigan University. He wrote here, sometimes a school psychologist or behavior specialist must be called to help the team determine how to change the behavior. And then, so I added here when I downloaded this PowerPoint, but also make sure there's somebody who's knowledgeable about deafblindness, because we want to make sure that the team is really considering and interpreting the communicative intent of what the child is doing. We want to look at the whole child and consider medical and health challenges, the pain that the child might be experiencing, whatever it is, to make sure that that the whole child is considered. And then finally, everyone on the team should use the same consistent message when talking about changing a behavior.
It's 4 o'clock.
And my computer says it's 4 o'clock and I'm done. So, so there's the last slide. So I hope that was helpful for you to see how you can go into the Open Hands, Open Access modules and take out slideshows and use them. So that's one of the features of AHOA, that it's full of wonderful slideshows and videos and all sorts of activities that you can use in whatever it is you're doing in your work. So I am going to stop sharing, and it is 4 o'clock, and it looks like we have a pretty good group of people here, pretty large group of people. So I am going to open it up for questions. And Julie, do we have anything in the chat box for